Harihi Om Gajananam Bhudaganati Sevidam Kavitta Jumbo Bhalasara Pakshitham Umasudam Sokha Vinashakaranam Namami Vickneswara Pangajam Jnananandamayam Devam Nirmalar Spatikathrudhyam Adharam Sarva Vidyanam Hayagrivam Upasmahe Yasyat Varada Vakradhyaya Parishatya Parashatham Vignam Nignam Tisatatam Vishwashremam Tamashraye Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Sarvalokanam Bisaje Bhavaroginaha Nidaye Sarva Vidyanam Sri Dakshina Murthaye Namaha Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Saishwararpanamastu Ramanuja Daya Patram Jnana Vairagya Bhushanam Srimad Venkatanathayam Vandhe Vedanta Vedeshikam Lakshmi Nada Samarambha Nada Yamuna Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantham Vande Guru Paramparam Om Apadamapahattaram Dataram Sarvasampadam Lokabhiramam Sri Ramam Bhuyo Bhuyo Namamyam Ramaya Ramabhadraya Ramachandraya Vedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sithayam Pataye Namaha Om Shri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tattulyam Ramanama Varanane Ramanama Varanane Nama Iti Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramarpanamastu Astika Namo Namaha Suswagaram. Welcome. Yet another journey into the forests, or deep into the forests of the Dandaka forest, where last week I left you with Ayodhya Kanda and what took place in Ayodhya Kanda. Right. So today we're going to the third chapter of the third book called Aranya Kanda. It's called a book of forest. Aranya means forest, right? And Valmiki's version of Ramayana, first version written, right? Valmiki Ramayana. He has dedicated 75 chapters to this particular chapter or kanta, right? So let us look at what the word Aranya means in the first place, right? Aranya means forest, okay? So basically this whole chapter, what I'm going to summarize and give you in the next hour or so is Aranya Kanda. And this is basically looking at Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana's time deep in the forest for their period of Vanavasa, which was 14 years, right? Now, I think I explained to you what the significance of 14 years is, right? 7 up, 7 down, right? That sort of thing last week. Again, if you look at the Vedas, there are 4 Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Dharma Veda, right? Each of these Veda consists of 4 parts. So if you take the Rig, it's further compartmentalized into 4 parts, the same with Yajur, Sama, and Dharma, right? The 4 parts are broken into Mantra Samhita, right? Looking at hymns, Samhitas. Then you have the Brahmanas, right? or explanations of mantras and rituals. And the king among this is, of course, the Rig Veda. Then we have the third part, which is called Aranyakas. These are the philosophical interpretations of rituals and of the Upasana, which is the ritualistic or the worship side of things. And the fourth part is called the Upanishads, right? The essence of knowledge, or the, the crown or the crest of knowledge. So each of these Vedas are divided into these four parts of mantra samhitas, brahmanas, aranyakas, and Upanishads. Okay. If you take these four parts, right? Excuse me. The four parts also represent the four ashramas: brahmacharya, grahastha, vanapadishta, and sannyasa. So if you take the mantra samhitas, they are hymns, Vedic hymns in praise of gods or different gods for attaining, material prosperity, for happiness hereafter, so on and so forth. So they represent the brahmacharya, or the celibate part of human life. Then if you take the brahmanas are what you call educating people in the performance of sacrificial rituals, sacrificial rites, yajnas, and so on and so forth. And they give you the mantras which are specific to that, and they also give you the explanations of those mantras to be used in the yajnas and so on and so forth. But this represents the second ashrama, which is the grahastha or householder ashrama. Then you come to the aranyakas, which is the forest, the books of forest, right? Called sylvan. In Latin, sylvan means forest, right? These are meant to be philosophical interpretations of how you view life, going back, looking at it. And of course, you do that so that you can go forward with that benefit of hindsight. So the aranyakas are intended for vanapadishtas, or people who are going to the hermit stage, so that they can prepare themselves appropriately for the sannyasa stage, the last stage, right? So aranyakas equals vanapadishta. And finally, the Upanishads, which gives you the, the crown or the jewel of knowledge at the top of the, apex of knowledge is the little crown. That crown is called the Upanishads, right? So this represents sannyasa, right? Where, of course, once you've gone from brahmacharya to grahastha, grahastha to vanapadishta, vanapadishta to sannyasa, then of course you become a jnani after that, right? So the aranyakas are verily representing or constituting something called Upasana Kanda, which is ritualistic worship. So of course, in these 14 years, Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana in the forest, they did many things to come to terms with their own self and making sure that everybody around them benefits from their very presence, right? So a short recap, right? So all of them leave Ayodhya, right? Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana, and their journey, begins and goes deep into the Dandharanyaka forest until, I left you at Chitrakoot, where they, it was said that many rishis, many sages have, set camp there and meditated for years to gain the benefit of jnana drishti, right? So actually, if you look at Valmiki's recording of the Aranya Kanda, he says this is actually where Rama's main mission begins, in the Chitrakoot forest. Why? Because they're going deeper and deeper into the forest. Now, they're going deeper and deeper into the forest. If you take the inner significance, it means you as a person should go inner and inner into the depth of your mind and clear out all the forest, so that there is a clear space where you can be in communion with God. Because once that happens inside your mind, then everything else falls into place. So what was Rama's main mission? Well, one of the things I said to you was, at a very young age, right? Balakanda, I told you how he was taken by Vishwamitra, Balarama and Lakshmana, to help Vishwamitra finish all his yajnas, accrue more powers. And in Vishwamitra accruing more powers, he also empowered Rama and Lakshmana by giving them different types of astras, weapons, right? For not to fight and show who's bigger than the other person, right? But to uphold dharma, right? So in a nutshell, the Aranya Kanda starts at Chitrakoot when, Bharata, along with Shatruguna, leaves And then, of course, Rama is sad to see his brothers go. And then he continues his journey. In fact, he does not want to stay there because he's constantly reminded, that place reminds him of Bharata and Shatrughna. So he says to Lakshmana, let's move, right? So he continues to go. Of course, there is a deeper message, in a sense that there are other rishis, along the way that he is meant to help, and therefore unknowingly he is engaging in this journey so that he could actually fulfill his dharmic role of taking the avatar of Rama. As you know, Krishna has said in the Gita, isn't it? Whenever there is a decline in righteousness, God will incarnate from age to age to instill and uphold that dharma again. Paritrana sadhuna vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. There you go. So he says, I have come to do this. But of course, that is the saying, that is the grand Mahavakya. But Rama doesn't know he's God, isn't it? But he, at a human level, he's saying, let me go deeper and deeper, right? So, as I said, he couldn't stay in that place because he was constantly reminded of his brothers, Bharata, Shatrughna, and also, that is where he did his father's Antyeshti. So he goes deeper and deeper into the endless forest. Now, what is the lesson for us? The lesson for us is attachment, right? Attachment is binding. Detachment releases, right? Attachment binds, detachment releases. Out of sight, out of mind. That is why when people want to do yatras, they go to faraway places, places where normal life doesn't exist. So they go up, walking up a hill, they go up mountains, they go to places where there is complete solitude, and they go deep into the forest. That is why you see all in the Puranas and everywhere, when rishis and when sevaks go into meditation, they always go and look for these places. Because out of sight, out of mind, no attachment, then you can slowly tap into the detachment and build on that detachment, right? So what is the significance of Aranya Kandam, right? There are 6 points that I want you to remember as I go through this, right? Number one, Rama's journey. When I say Rama, I also mean Sita and Lakshmana, right? So don't think I only mean Rama. Rama's journey deeper into the forest, and by that I mean they are traveling from north and they are moving in a southerly direction. So if you can imagine the map of India, north of India, right, where Ayodhya is, they're making their way down until finally from Rameshwaram they are crossing into the beautiful island of Lanka. Okay, then of course that's the first point, right? Rama's journey southwards. The second point is Surpanaka. Surpanaka, of course, the Kami or the Rakshasi or the Asuri who comes and, of course, the problem starts with her. I will explain later. That is the second point that represents desire. Okay. Surpanaka's desire for Rama, and Rama said no for Lakshmana. When Lakshmana said no, she went for Sita, right? So endless desire. And of course, Sita's own desire for that golden deer, which led to all the other problems. Then, of course, the third point about Aranya Kandam is the killing of Kara and Dushana. There are two asuras, two Rakshasas. Then, of course, the fourth point is Ravana coming and kidnapping Sita. Fifth point is the great, right, passing of Jatayu. Right, again, I will explain more, Jatayu is famous for a place in Andhra Pradesh called Lepakshi, right? Lepakshi means rise, O bird, right? And that is one of the main places where Rama was. And also there's a great Shiva temple where after doing the funeral rites for Jatayu, Rama installed the Shivalinga. And today, if you still go to Lepakshi, you can still see this temple, and there's references to where Jatayu fell and all of that, right? Then that's the fifth one, death of Jatayu. And the sixth one is Rama meeting the great Kabandhu and the greater Sabari, right? Shabari. Shabari is a great devotee of Lord Vishnu, and certainly she was told that she will be meeting the Maryada Purushottama, who represents, Vishnu himself. So she was waiting, she was waiting for a long time. Anyway, I'll come back to that. So these are the 6 main points in relation to Aranya Kanda. So continuing the journey, Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana arrive at the ashrama of Maharishi Atri and his wife Anasuya, right? Atri, I explained to you what is the meaning of Atri. Aitri, that means one who is above the 3 gunas. And Anasuya means one who is above the quality of envy or greed or jealousy, right? So Anasuya means absence of jealousy, and Atri means one who has transcended the 3 gunas. So very, very special rishi. So they arrive at the ashrama and they are looked after well by Maharishi Atri and Rishini Anasuya. And Anasuya gives to Sita a small gift, some clothes. Of course, these are special clothes because, through her tapas, Anasuya had amassed some power where she can actually give quality to gifts that she's gifting to people. So this special cloth that she gave to Sita said will never soil. So you can always wear it and every day it becomes fresh. Sita, of course, she is the wife of the meant to be king of Ayodhya, right? So it is usual or customary for them to give gifts to people, and very uncustomary to receive. But this shows Sita's humility, right? She humbly accepts. All right, that's a form of bhakti yoga. In the bhakti marga, whatever gifts people give, you humbly accept. So she never says no to a gift where the gift is given with love or devotion, right? So that shows humility, or the quality of being humble. Anasuya, on the other hand, is has got great tapas. She's a simpleton who does not use all these valuable gifts given to them by others. So that shows the character of giving valuable and good things away to others to enjoy, right? This lesson for us here is whenever we want to give charity, we must give things of value or things that others will use because they are good things, right? Most people want to give away something that they no longer need, nor which are useful to them. That they can do, So that's the lesson that this particular instance in this Aranya Kanda is teaching us, right? So after a couple of days with Rishi Atri and his wife Anasuya, they leave. Now they proceed towards the Dandaka forest. They're going deeper and deeper, and they come to one spot where it is, frighteningly silent, eerie kind of silence. Some places you go, there is silence, but some places, I don't know if you've experienced it, right? But I have experienced it. It's the silence is frightening. The silence is frightening. For example, I tell you, when I went to Kailash, going up, there's one place where you come to. It's called Rakshasthala, right? There's a huge lake there, and the water is black. I say black, I mean black, right? Really dark, right? Black or short of being black. So standing there, I actually didn't know it was Rakshasthala, right? So I thought, well, there's a lake here. Let's take a dip. Anything on Kailash has to be holy, right? Then I was stopped by, some of the other people who'd been there many times. And the person, he's a doctor, he said to me, SG, don't go there. Don't put your foot in there. He said, this is Rakshasthala. This is where all the Rakshasas, once they are killed, all the ashes are come and thrown here. That's why it's all black. And that's why you can hear the silence, and that silence is scary. Then I stood there for a while, and really I could hear the silence, and that silence was really scary. And then we went another 2,000-3,000 feet up, and we came to Manasrovar. And Manasrovar, of course, the complete opposite is where the Devas and Rishis and everybody come. And we had a little dip there. Icy cold water, right? Icy cold. Dip there, and then I did a havan there, and so on and so forth, right? So when I say this unfriendly silence, right, it just took me back there for a moment. So Rama and Lakshmana, by just looking at each other, they're already communicating, say, be extra vigilant, be extra careful. So they put Sita in the middle. Lakshmana was walking in front, Rama was walking at the back. so that nothing can, And suddenly a Rakshasa leaps out. This Rakshasa is called Virada. Virada jumps out to attack Sita, right? Rama and Lakshmana automatically go in front, and Rama was waiting, just protecting Sita, and Lakshmana just took his sword and cut up, chopped off the Rakshasa's hands. The moment the hands were chopped off, the Rakshasa assumed its original form of a Gandharva. Gandharva are heavenly beings, but because of a curse of something or other, they were, they were made to come down to Bhuloka in the form of a Rakshasa until the curse is lifted. And this curse was, divine person must cut your hands off. So the curse was lifted, and Virada Asura became Gandharva, and he was pointing the way to where Rama and Lakshmana should continue their journey, right? So Virada was liberated from his curse, and as a as a gratitude, he said, this is the way you should go. And, there will be one or two other asuras there, but I'm sure you will deal with them, and he left. So you see, like I said to you last week, right? God will always give you pointers along the way, so long as you're on the path of dharma. Help will come. You don't have to question at what time, where, from who. When it's meant to come, it will come. If you have firm faith and firm belief in that, you'll be fine. So anyway, this was yet another mission of Rama, right? Giving liberation to Virada, to lift him from this curse. So he gave moksha to Virada, and Virada left. And then just, continuing their journey, shortly they reached the ashrama of Rishi Sarabanga, right? Now, Rishi Sarabanga is also a great Rishi who for many decades have been, doing a lot of tapas in the form of, dhyana. And he has reached such a state where Devendra from Swargaloka had come on his chariot, and he had sent the chariot to bring sage Sarabanga from Bhuloka to Devaloka or Swargaloka. So Sarabanga was talking to Mathali, right? The charioteer. And as he was talking, Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana arrived. Of course, Sarabanga, when he sees Rama, he does not see Rama as in the human person Rama. He sees Mahavishnu. Because I told you, these rishis of great they have jnana drishti. They can see beyond, right? Beyond mind, beyond matter. So he sees Mahavishnu, and he falls at Rama's feet. And Rama then says, no, I should be falling at your feet. Rama falls at his feet and takes Ashirvad. And then Rama says, who is this waiting? I hope we have not disturbed you. You seem to be in the middle of something. And then Sarabanga says, no. It's actually Indradeva's chariot. And chariot, he sent it so that, he says it's time for me to go to Swargaloka. And then Rama says, okay, you carry on. We will continue our journey. He says, no. He sends the charioteer back, after all the tapas. And now the tapas has come to culmination. He is being sent Indra's chariot to take him to Swargaloka. That means the fruit of all his years of tapasya has finally materialized. Now, instead of riding the chariot and going up, he sends the charioteer back and say, let me stay here and serve Rama and Lakshmana and Sita for the time that they're going to stay with me. So charioteer says, okay, your choice. And then he leaves. And then Sarabanga says, you stay here with me. I will serve you for as long as you need. In fact, I am prepared to give you all my tapasya, all the fruits of my tapasya. I am prepared to renounce in your favor. Rama says, no. And this is what Rama says. Listen, he says, every person should earn their own punya by their own conduct. Every person should earn their own punyas by reference to their own conduct. Now, you just put yourself in Rishi Sarabanga's position, and you're going to get this gift. How many of you, or even us, will be prepared to sacrifice such a great, grand gift? simply to serve another person on earth. That's a great thing. I mean, what is the lesson that we can take from this? You see, the tapasvis and jnanis, right, and maharishis like Sarabanga and others, we can learn that even Swarga Loka is not so attractive when it comes to being in the satsang of holy and noble people like Rama. Of course, these rishis can see who Rama is, so they want to be in the company of God, not in the company of Devas. So you need to have that inner vision, right? Inner vision to see why you are doing certain things and what purpose you are doing it for, and for what results you are expecting. Right? For what? What results are you expecting? This is why when I did Bhaja Govindam with you last year, March or April, I said to you, remember, satsangatvam nitsangatve, nitsangatvam nirmohatve, nirmohatvam nishchalatatvam, jivan mukti. Satsangatvam nitsangatve. Only by attaching yourself to the good and the holy can you detach yourself from the bad and the unholy. Secondly, right, spiritual upliftment is something that can only be earned by constant and consistent practice, and it cannot be purchased, accepted, or gifted by another person to you. It cannot. It's just like you studying for something and then sitting for an exam and passing with a nice qualification, rather than someone else writing the exam for you, but the degree comes in your name. You still don't have the knowledge. You may have that piece of paper. You understand? So this is what punya is saying. Go back to what I said in karma palan, right? What you think, what you say, and what you do, all three accrues karma. So that's why Swami says, think good, speak good, and do good. Finish. Right? Because in that good, there is God. G-O-O-D, you take out one O. G-O-D, God. Right? Again, another beautiful saying in Bhaja Govindam. Yogarathova, Bhogarathova, Sangaratova, Sangavihina, Yashyat Brahmani Ramate Chittam, Nandati, Nandati, Nandatyeva. Fantastic. Yashyat Brahmani Ramate Chittam. Only when you constantly think and reflect on God, then only Nandati, Nandati, Nandatyeva, the happiness will come round and round and round again, because you're constantly in that bliss of Namasmarana, Nama Sankirtana, right? So we fail to understand that divinity and eternal bliss, right, is within us. But instead of going inside, going deep into the forests of your mind and the annals of your heart, we seek transient and impermanent happiness outside on things that do not matter, or superficial things. So we should really take a step back and see what we are doing. Is this, what is meant to be done by us? So they leave Sarabanga's place. Rama, gets blessed by Sarabanga. Sarabanga continues his tapasya again, right? And of course, in the journey, they continue to meet many others. Many other rishis who need their protection from the himsa of Rakshasas and Asuras, like Khara, for example. So Rama, of course, accepts that, of course, he's been trained at a very young age by Vishwamitra, and he's taken Vishwamitra as the guru, and he's given Vishwamitra his word of honor, saying he will always be there to protect dharma, right? To give protection to all these rishis and saints and sages. So after they leave Sarabanga's and the ashrama, and then they're continuing, they now arrive at Rishi Sudikshana's ashrama. Again, Sudikshana looks after them very well, and Sudikshana also says, I am prepared to gift all my tapasyas, all the punyas that I've accumulated through all the tapas that I've done to you. Will you please accept? And Rama says, no, don't gift it to me. You have to use it for yourself, because you have earned it. Okay. Then the sage advises them to come back to the ashram, says, don't just go, when you finished all your things, come back and see me, then you go. Of course, all the rishis tell them that anyway. So Rama continues after, spending some time with Sudikshana. Every rishi tells him something, and some powerful rishis give him something. a gift. Like Vishwamitra gave something, what do you call, Agastya gave him something like that. So he was continuing. Of course, all this time, he is also very cautious that, he and Lakshmana, they are used to this forest life. Of course, much of their youth they spent in the company of rishis in the forest, defending them and protecting them. But for Sita, this was a new experience. So whenever he got the chance, he used to talk to her, explain things to her, and they were actually very happy, right? Valmiki records that they were actually very, very happy, right? Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana, enjoying the flora, the fauna. They were leading a very peaceful life, a life in perfect harmony with nature. This is the Panchabhutas, right? They were in perfect harmony with the Panchabhutas. Everything was natural around them. Nothing is unnatural, right? So what is the lesson for us here? You see, you must note that, even though they were living in the forest with nothing, right? Only nature, right? Trees, rivers, nature. They were very happy. They were contented. And look at us. Even though we live in the best of places, we drive good cars, stay in, big houses, stay in utmost comfort. Why is it that we are never happy? Some of us even curse our fate. Why have I been cursed with this life? And we crave for things that we don't have. The lesson Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana's Vanavasa, 14 years in the Dandaka and Chitrakoot forest, is telling us, be happy with what you have. God has given you what you need to live comfortably and to live happily. It is your choice, right? As the mind, so the man. Yat mano tat manushyaha, right? Like that. Yeah? Yat buddhi tat buddhaha, as the mind, so the Buddha, like that. That is a great saying that goes, there is enough in the entire world for everybody's need, but there isn't enough in the entire universe for one man's greed. Basically greed, lobha. So anyway, they're walking, they're talking, Rama's talking to Sita and Lakshmana is in front, ever the guardian. Remember who they are in actual life, right? He's Adishesha. Adishesha is a serpent with 1,000 heads, continuously watching, continuously guarding, continuously on the lookout. And on him is Mahavishnu and Mahalakshmi. Of course, they are unaware of their true nature. So, but the swabhava means the characteristic is the same. Even though they don't know, they are still doing what they are naturally inclined to do. Their inherent characteristic is that. So Lakshmana is doing there, and Rama is talking to Lakshmana. Now, Sita asks him a very interesting question. In fact, a very valid question, right? Sita says, my lord, what are the three attitudes that represent adharma? It's quite interesting why she should suddenly ask this question. But anyway, there is a record in Valmiki's writings that, Sita asks him that, what are the three things that represents adharma? So Rama says, number one, the utterance of falsehood. He said, Satyam Vadha, and of course the Rig Veda says that, Dharmam Chara, so he says, speaking lies, so uttering falsehood is a great adharma. Then of course, wanting or desiring things that don't belong to you, whether it is a person or things, that is not good, right? So, whether you desire someone who is already married or, somebody who cannot be gotten, or something that you want that you cannot get because it's not yours or it already belongs to someone else, that kind of desire, right? He says that is bad. And number three, he says, hurting someone who has not offended you, that is also adharma. So Sita says, Swamiji, I know that, you don't do number one, and of course, you don't lie, you never speak lies, you always tell the truth, and of course, you always do the right conduct. So number one is okay. Number two, you never think of anybody else's, because remember what I told you, he said, Janani Janma Bhumischa Swarghadapi Gariyasi. He looks at every woman as his mother, Kausalya, except his wife. So she says that number two also, I'm happy because I know you will never do that. You're Ega Patini Vratam, right? You're a one woman man like that. Sita was a one-man woman like that. But she says, I am not clear about the number 3. You said it is adharmic to hurt someone who has not offended you. Then how is it that you can go and kill all these asuras who has not offended you? They are offending the rishis. The rishis are doing the yajnas. The asuras have a problem with them. They are disturbing them. Then how can you kill someone? Because you just said that it is adharmic if you hurt or kill someone who's not offended you. I can't understand that. Can you explain? You see, very, very intelligent question Sita's asked, right? And how does Rama respond to that? Rama says, I am a Kshatriya. As a Kshatriya, it is my duty to protect the good and destroy the evil, even if I am in the garb of a tapasvi. Even though I am wearing yellow or ochre robes, I still have to do my duty as a tapasi, as a Kshatriya who's a tapasi. The uncompromising fidelity to righteousness is my dharma. And he says, I will give up my life, even if it is to give it up for you or Lakshmana, but I will never sway from the truth because that is my swadharma. It is my dharma to protect all these rishis. I gave my word. I was trained by Vishwamitra. So I am using this knowledge and this gift to protect all these people who are going to be doing good, praying for Loka Kalyan. All these rishis are praying for Loka Kalyan. None of the rishis pray for, self-enrichment and all of that. They're always praying for Loka Kalyan. So he tells Sita, that is my Swadharma Paripalanaha as a Kshatriya. Right? The mission to uphold dharma. If you remember, when I did Bhagavad Gita with you, I told you the entire reason why the Bhagavad Gita was given to man was because of Arjuna's problem. Arjuna had a problem. He says, how can I hurt these people? They haven't offended me. They haven't hurt me. I can see my cousins across. I can see my grandfather. I can see my great-grand guru, Bhishmacharya. I can see my guru, Dronacharya. They haven't offended me. They haven't hurt me. So how can I fight with them? And then Krishna starts to talk. He says, you are a Kshatriya, Arjuna. What is your duty as a Kshatriya? You are doing your duty. Don't worry about the results. Don't focus on the results. And I told you one of the essence, if you squeeze the Bhagavad Gita, it says, do your duty. Don't worry about the results. Duty is devotion. Work is worship, said he. Right? So the same thing in different, yugas, the same message is coming, albeit in different ways from different people, right? So they spent about 10 years in the forest doing all this seva, helping all the rishis, moving from place to place, meeting all the different rishis. And then finally they come to the rishi, Agastya's, Agastya, the great grand Agastya. I told you dynamites come in small packages. So this is a huge dynamite, right? So they reach his ashrama. And of course, they spend a few days there. And of course, Agastya knows who they are. And Agastya knows Vishwamitra was with them and all of that. So after 2 or 3 days of, engaging with them, Agastya says, Rama, come here. Let me gift you with something. Remember what Vishwamitra gave Rama the Pinakine, Shiva's bow. Agastya gave Rama Vishnu's bow, Vishnu's Dhanush. Right? So Shiva's Dhanush was called Pinaka or Pinakine. Agastya gives Rama Vishnu's Dhanush. This is called Saranga. He gives him the Saranga, which the moment you lift and you pull, the arrows come. You just have to leave like this. Inexhaustible queers. Just going boom, 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 boom. And he gave the Rajas. The Rajas is the sword used by Lord Narayana, when he engaged in war previously, right? So he's 2 powerful weapons. You see, I told you, isn't it? They were being given lots of things in different parts of their journey in order to prepare them for the grand battle. So anyway, he gives, Agastya gives Rama this, the Vishnu Dhanush, the Saranga, and the Vishnu sword, which is the Rajas. And, he says, with this, it's not easy to beat you. Okay, because it's not easy. So they're preparing him. Of course, Rama is not sure what they are saying, but Rama's thoughts are, oh, you are empowering me so to protect all the rishis and so on and so forth, right? And then Agastya says, when the time is right, Indra will send his chariot and his charioteer Mathali for you at the right time. You don't worry, the chariot will come at the right time. So this grand assurance was given to Rama. So if you recall, right, in the Balakanda, Vishwamitra passed all his knowledge and some powerful astras to Rama, right? Now, in the Aranya Kanda, Agastya is giving the same things in different ways. The point here is, whatever we acquire in terms of spiritual knowledge, in terms of spiritual guidance, in terms of spiritual upliftment, it has to be acquired through a guru or via satsanga, right? Guru, gunatita, rupa varjita. Gu, gunatita, rupa varjita, one who's beyond attributes, guna, and one who's beyond form, rupa. Also, gu comes from the root Sanskrit word gha, and ru comes from the root Sanskrit word ra, which is gu means remove, ra means darkness. So a guru is one who is given the capacity to remove darkness or ajnana and infuse that with jnana or light. So all these people have come into Rama's life throughout his journey in the forest at different points. Of course, Vishwamitra was already beyond that in the early stages, giving him guidance, giving him everything that he needs to continue his journey, right? Because Rama doesn't know who he is. Lakshmana doesn't know who he is. Sita doesn't know who she is. But all the others who had come down to help them, right? Like all the rishis knew who they were. And therefore, they were doing things that they were meant to do in order to make that journey better for them, right? So they go from Agastya's Rishi's ashrama, they continue, and they come to Panchavati. Panchavati. Panchavati is, if those of you who know, Maharashtra, Mumbai, or Bombay as it used to be known, there's a place there called Nashik. This Nashik, the Western Ghats, it's a foothill town, or it used to be, right, near River Godavari. Nashik is the modern day reference for what was called Panchavati in Rama's time. So if you go there today, there are some spots, right? And these are places you have to go, in your lifetime. Because a lot of people, ask me this question, is the Ramayana real? I said, yeah, it is real because I have seen evidence of it. I have gone to these places where, there are records. I have seen evidence. I can tell you it's real. But of course, I'm telling you my experience. My experience is not your experience. So you need to go here and see this evidence for yourself. Same thing with Kurukshetra. I think when I did Gita sessions with you, I told you, I've been to Kurukshetra, sat there, and I could feel, just close your eyes, sitting there, it takes you back. And you go through the motions, what happened in chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. Fantastic. You have to experience. The experience is the best master, very true. So they are in Panchavati for the rest of the days, waiting for, greater events to come, which is coming soon, right? On their way to Panchavati, they meet another great character. This is Jatayu. Jatayu is the son of Aruna. Aruna is the charioteer of Surya Deva. Very powerful. Surya Deva, as you know, he was the guru for who? Who was Surya the guru to? Now we're going to talk about this character, not next week, but the week after. In Sundarakanda, I'm going to talk about Hanuman. Surya was Hanuman's guru. Anyway, Surya's charioteer is Aruna. And of course, Jatayu the eagle, the falcon, was the son of Aruna and the brother of Sampati. Sampati was very close to Rama's father, Dasharatha. Right? So one brother, the elder brother, was very close to Dasharatha, and they fought many times together. And Jatayu came to know this is Dasharatha's son, Rama, and he said, I am Sampati's brother. And of course, they became good friends. And Jatayu says, this is the way to go. I'll show you which part of Panchavati is nice for you to go and build a camp, where it is safe for Sita, it is beautiful, there's a river, that's not far from Godavari, so on and so forth. And Jatayu said to Rama, don't worry, I will always keep an eye on Sita, right? So Rama says, okay, thank you very much. So at Panchavati, Lakshmana builds a beautiful ashram at a site selected by Rama. Now, when Rama tells Lakshmana to choose a good location, Lakshmana says, no, you choose, I will just build. Rama says, why should I choose? You can choose, right? Lakshmana says, no, you lead, I follow. You say, I will do. But there are many times, in the course of their togetherness, right? Many times when Rama was in a state of anguish, in a state of thought or thoughtlessness, whichever case may appear, it was Lakshmana who was telling him and giving him the talking to. He never hesitated to speak Satya boldly, right? And he never hesitated to console Rama when he was, in pangs of anguish, so to speak. So Lakshmana is saying, this is how you become an excellent devotee. The true companionship, mitra. Lakshmana shows that quality. So they are happily staying in Panchavati, and suddenly one day this Rakshasi or Asuri, or we call Kami, one whose desires are unbound. Everything they see they want, they desire, lust, quality of lust. Kami, so she's known as Kami. Surpanaka, an ugly Rakshasi, in the disguise of a beautiful woman, comes, and she sees Rama sitting under the tree, just sharpening a wood. And she goes to him and she says, looking at your beauty, I have fallen in love with you. And Rama says, look, I'm already married, but if you want, you can try my brother Lakshmana. Of course, Rama was in one of his lighter moments, right? So he tells Surpanaka to go to Lakshmana, who's, some 100 yards away. So immediately Surpanaka, the Rakshasi, goes to Lakshmana, and again she expresses her love for Lakshmana, because Lakshmana is no less in terms of stature and beauty. Now it is Lakshmana's turn to say, actually, I am a full-time servant of my brother Rama, right? I think it is him that you should go for, not for me. So it was like a yo-yo. She was being sent back and forth. Of course, these guys were just having fun. Rama and Lakshmana, I mean, right? Then she saw Sita. The moment she saw Sita, she wanted Sita. So she says, okay, I don't want you, but I want that woman, and I'm going to eat her up. So as she goes, of course, Rama signals to Lakshmana, says, protect Sita. And of course, Lakshmana restrains Surpanaka from attacking Sita, and in doing so, he maims her by chopping off her ears and her nose. Yeah? You read this in stories anyway, right? So what does Surpanaka represent? Surpanaka represents, desire or lust. I mean, the word lust here is another word for desires, right? Uncontrollable desires, which keeps changing. She saw Rama, she wanted him. She saw Lakshmana, she wanted him. Then she saw Sita, she wanted him. So, an uncontrolled desire, an uncurbed, uncurtailed desire will be like this. It will start to rule your life and ruin your life, right? Object of lust constantly changes. Object of love never changes. One and one only, right? So sometimes, it is said that human beings behave like Surpanaka because their desires are continuously changing and never ending, right? When your desires are continuously changing and never ending, the result is misery, right? That's why it said, the four Purusharthas say dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Dharma, artha, all materials should be acquired through dharmic means, right conduct. Kama, moksha. Kama is desire or lust, if you like. Only when kama or desire is controlled, then it is easy to go towards the path of moksha. Four Purusharthas say this. So the moment she was humiliated, right? Her ears were chopped off and her nose was chopped off. She rushes to her brother Kara, another great demon, right? Who is related to Ravana. Because, they are Rakshasas, they have quite a huge, family circle, if you put it that way. And the job of the Rakshasas is to disturb all the rishis and so on and so forth. So Kara sends, his general and, 14 asuras. He said, go and kill these two fellas and bring them and bring the woman also here. Of course, they are no match for Rama and Lakshmana. Then Kara himself goes with 14,000 asuras, an army of Rakshasas. Of course, Rama's got the Dhanush. Remember what Agastya just gave him. The Saranga, Vishnu's, which does not need any arrow. You just have to leave. Boom, 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 like that, right? In no time, he just stood like Lord Shiva firing Vishnu's. Can you imagine the two powers? Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu together fighting like that, So in no time, this entire army was destroyed, right? He slayed the Kara Rakshasa, and of course, one of the Rakshasas was hurt. It's called Akampana. This Rakshasa called Akampana was hurt, and he escapes from this part of the forest called Janasthana, right? He escapes and he manages to reach Ravana's court, for a few days of traveling and whatnot. Then he tells Ravana, remember these Rakshasas, they are Rakshasas, but they got lots of powers, right? The power to disappear, power to become invisible, power to fly, power to, fly over air, power to live in water, all those kind of things, they have those powers, right? So Ravana decides to attack Rama, right? And of course, Akampana says, look, this guy doesn't look like a normal person, right? I think it's difficult to fight this chap, Rama. Of course, Akampana doesn't know who Rama is, by saying this person does not look normal. So Ravana says, let me see. And then Ravana goes to an ashrama in the forest where his great uncle, Maricha, if you remember Maricha, during Balakanda, I said he was hurt by Rama, right? And then he disappears. So he comes, he's now become an ascetic. So Ravana says, you've heard what happened. I want you to go and abduct this lady and bring her to me. Maricha he's already experienced Rama, right? So he says, look, this guy, he's been trained by Vishwamitra and they are, par excellent. I don't think you should go and pick a fight with this person, Rama. Ravana says, if you don't, instead of Rama, I will be killing you, right? So you better do as you're told. He says, I'm going to give you some time to think about it and come up with a plan on what to do. And I want you to come and tell me. So he goes. He goes not because Ravana leaves, not because he's afraid of Rama, but because he thought, oh, maybe my uncle is talking sense. So he gives him some time and he says, okay, you come to Lanka and you tell me what to do, right? Meanwhile, Surpanaka herself goes to Lanka and then she goes to Ravana's court and tells him, cousin, look, what has happened to me. I only went there because I saw this most beautiful woman on earth and I thought you should have her. So I tried to go there and these two people did this to me. So you should avenge what has happened to me and you should, go and abduct this woman and make her your wife. So Ravana now, already the thought has come into him. Now he's got into it even more. So he goes back. He goes back to Maricha and he says, you have no choice. I want you to do this now, right? Tell me, how are you going to get these two fellows out of sight so that Sita can be, freed so that she can be abducted without any problems? And Maricha was thinking, look, I have no choice, either I do as this guy says and I better die in the hands of Rama rather than being killed by this jungli, by this great asura. So he tells, Maricha has his powers of, changing his shape and form. So he says, I will go in the form of a golden deer. Sita will see me and she will ask Rama to come and capture me. When Rama comes to capture me, Rama, of course, will not bring Lakshmana. He will leave Lakshmana to look after Sita. But I will shout in the voice of Rama. Maricha has all that, capability as part of his Asuric Tantra. So then Lakshmana will come to my aid. Then it's up to you to, abduct Sita. So that was the plan, right? Maricha was prepared to die, right? He says, if I'm going to die, I better get killed in the hands of Rama as opposed to Ravana, right? Sita falling for the golden deer is desire as well, right? So even sometimes in moments of detachment, right, you can still fall foul of the desire rule. So always keeping yourself in constant, this is what Swami says, CIA, constant integrated awareness on God, CIA, right? So you must become CIA, right? Not the American, police department, Central Intelligence Agency, but yeah, you should have intelligence to be constantly an integrated awareness with God. Constantly having an integrated awareness with God. That is CIA. So even good people sometimes in bad times, they get trapped by this desire. So that's what happens, You must remember discrimination or viveka, then desire, right? As long as discrimination is there, desire cannot overthrow it. The moment desire overthrows discrimination, then there is nothing to fight it. And this is exactly what happened here, right? So Baricha disguises as the golden deer and runs, hops in front of Sita at a distance. Sita says, wow, what a beautiful deer. My lord, won't you bring it to me? Rama says, of course, my dear, I will bring it to you so you can have a companion, you can play with it. So he chases it, right? And then after some time, they hear Rama's voice calling, hello, Sita, Lakshmana, Sita, Lakshmana. And then Lakshmana becomes alert and Sita is saying, Lakshmana, that's your brother calling, go, go, go. And Lakshmana is saying, no, it's not him. There's something funny here. It's not him. See, Lakshmana is exercising his viveka, his discrimination, and he's saying, no, it's not her. It doesn't sound like him. Sister-in-law, it doesn't sound like him. And Sita tells Lakshmana, what? I'm asking you to go and protect your brother, and you are questioning whether the sound is his or not. So she becomes, because desire, right? Attachment. Desire for the deer, attachment to her husband. She becomes, overtaken by this imbalance in her thoughts, therefore imbalance in the word, therefore imbalance in the action. So she says, you better go now. Otherwise, I will have no option but to think you have inner motives on me. So she says that. And Lakshmana says, okay, I will go. You are my mother, so I will listen to whatever you tell me. But I am going to put a little protection. Now here, this is called Lakshmana Rekha, right? Well, Valmiki doesn't make a reference to it in his writings, but I'm mentioning it because people might read it in other oceans. There exists a tantric mantra called Lakshmana Rekha, which is drawing. Rekha means lines. And it's called Lakshmana Rekha because Lakshmana drew these lines. He drew the lines across the four sides of the ashrama where Sita was, and he says, don't ever come out of this because I'm putting some tantric protection here. Like a defense shield, if you like. Right? If NASA says it has built a defense shield, everybody believes because it is NASA, right? But in the same thing said in our Puranas and our Ithihasas, people have a doubt, really, these things can happen. Come on, So yes, it exists, right? Mantric vibrations and tantric, right? Methodologies or rituals actually happen, actually exist, actually is very powerful, right? You and I can't do it, so we think it's non-existent. For people who know and who are engaged in it, they will think it's very, very possible. So he draws that lines and then he goes. Of course, we know what happens, right? When he chases Maricha, Maricha finally becomes who he is. And then, of course, Rama kills him. And then he's coming back and then he sees Lakshmana. He says, what are you doing here? I told you to wait with Sita. And then he says, Lakshmana says, no, she's the one who insisted I come. So don't worry, I've protected. Now, in the meantime, of course, Ravana appears as a Brahmana Rishi. And he says, you have to come and give me some food. but I will not come in because I have taken a vow never to step into an ashram. I will always beg from outside. So you have to come and give me the food. So he makes her cross the Lakshmana Rekha, come out. And of course, when she comes out, he catches her and he calls it Pushpaka Vimana. You know what you and I call spaceships or aircraft, right? These Vimanas actually existed then, right? Because we lived in an age of science, But today, if planes can fly and they can go to the moon and the sun, we believe it, right? But we don't believe it that they existed in those times. Of course they existed, right? So he goes, he takes Sita and he's flying towards Lanka. Of course, Jatayu is aware that this is happening, and then he cuts off, he cuts off Ravana, who's flying in his Akasha Vimana. Jatayu hears Sita's cry for help. He goes and he fights valiantly with Ravana. And of course, Ravana kills Jatayu. It's a fatal combat, unequal. Jatayu falls to the ground, slowly dying. Now, I want you to look at the culture of this vulture. Look at the culture of this vulture. A vulture he may be known as, but look at his culture. He knew he was totally unfit to go and fight Ravana, but yet he did. Because that was his value. That was his culture. He said, I will protect Sita to the best of my ability to Rama. And he stood by that word, even though it meant death for him. You and I, or us, right? How many times we have failed in our values or in our duties? How many times we have seen a dharma happening and we have quietly turned our eyes the other way around and walked away, right? So he kills Jatayu and he continues the journey. And as they were passing another hill some distance away, Sita saw 5 monkeys sitting on top of a hill. So she takes off whatever she was wearing, right? And she bundles it in a cloth and throws it to these monkeys. Or these monkeys collect it and they take it to their king. Now, Ravana, of course, he lands in Lanka. And then, of course, he doesn't realize that he's carrying his own death warrant in the form of Sita. He puts her in the Ashoka gardens. And he tells her, you have to think about getting married to me, right? It is only with your consent that I will marry you. So I'm going to give you some time. Now, back in Panchavati, Rama questions Lakshmana about the wisdom of Lakshmana leaving Sita behind. Rama starts lamenting. They get back to the ashrama and she's missing, right? Rama becomes inconsolable. He's in a state of grief. And of course, Lakshmana goes around looking. Lakshmana tries to counsel him, console him, so on and so forth. And then they said, let's go looking for it. So they go looking for any clues, any, steps they can see, any, trail, any clue basically. And then they see in some distance Jatayu dying there. So they go and help Jatayu. And of course, Jatayu is waiting. So Rama takes Jatayu in his hand. Jatayu tells him that's the way they went. And I'm so sorry, I did try my very best, but Ravana was far too powerful. And I'm so glad that I'm going to be breathing my last in your hands. And Rama, for that moment, forgot his own problems. And he was, just praying for. And then Jatayu breathes his last. Rama stands up, looking at it, and he says, Le Pakshi. That means rise, O bird. And you could see the soul of Jatayu rising and going. So they do the final rites for Jatayu at the riverside. And Rama installs a Shivalinga in his memory there. This is the temple now in Le Pakshi, if you go, in Andhra Pradesh. I think it's about 135, 140 kilometers from Bangalore, right? If you go, you can still see huge temple now. Of course, they've developed it, so on and so forth, right? But initially, in Rama's time, Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, this happened, right? So Rama had a lot of compassion for everyone and everything that came in his path. Even though the bird, right? So Rama tells Lakshmana, like, this experience with Jatayu has taken the sorrow out of my mind. Now I have to go and look after Sita. Look for Sita. That is our job now. Okay. I was so worried at the thought that I've lost her, but looking at Jatayu, who fought to save her, now has reminded me of my dharma, right? So as they proceeded, another Rakshasa who was actually cursed. Anyway, he was a Gandharva, was cursed. He was called Kabanda. Kabanda caught them, captured them, and of course tried to fight with them. Rama slays him, and by slaying him, lifts his curse, gives him moksha. And then, of course, this Kabanda Asura or Rakshasa tells to Rama, go in this way. He guides them to Rishyamukha Parvat, Mount Rishyamukha. He says, go this way and you will come across the ashrama of someone called Sabari. Then they continue and they arrive at a place called Mathangavadana, right? Mathangavana. And they meet Sabari. Sabari, of course, if you read about Sabari, right? See, now they've come all the way down to southwest, somewhere in Kerala, right? So that's where they meet Sabari. Sabari, as a child, gave up marriage and became, tapasvini when, they were preparing her marriage, and the mother said, all that you see out there will become food. So she says, what about those birds? Everything will become feasts for your guests. So she says, no, I'm not going to get married. I'm going to go and live with this in the jungle. And when she was going, she meets a rishi who says, you are destined for greater things. You will meet an avatar of Lord Vishnu. Until then, you have to wait. So she is also known as someone who can be, who's synonymous with the word pratiksha. Pratiksha means patience, or one who is in waiting. So she had a guru called Mathanga Rishi, right? That's why the place where she lived was called Mathanga Gavana. Then, of course, she goes to the Sabari Hills. It's called Sabarimala, right? That's where the great grand temple of Lord Ayyappan is. And that's where the Ayyappa Swami Bhaktas go. And, in January and also in April. And if all things are well, I'll be going in April. That's why I'm doing this, 42 days fast, but I'm doing it for 54 days. So hopefully things are good enough for me to go in the middle of April to Sabarimala, but let's see. So she waits there, and then finally she meets Rama. And of course, she serves him, and she's waited for so long. When Rama comes, she does what she's meant to do, and she gets what she's meant to get through him. And the point here is, or the funny thing here, I should say, is we all wait for trains, we wait for buses, we wait for planes, we wait for tickets, we queue up for cinema, we queue up for so many things, right? But we don't wait for the Lord like in the way the Shabari did. And that's the beauty, There's a beautiful bhajan which says how the Lord responds. If only we called him, or we fed him, or we played with him the way some people have, Achyutam Keshavam Krishna Dhamodharam Ramanarayanam Janaki Vallabham. कौन कहते हैं भगवान आते नहीं, तुम सबरी के जैसे बुलाते नहीं, तुम मीरा के जैसे बुलाते नहीं, कौन कहते हैं भगवान खाते नहीं, तुम यशोदा के जैसे खिलाते नहीं. I mean, so there is a method for doing things, right? And that is one reason why we sing bhajans, because through the bhajans, we are trying to communicate with God, by calling him. And some of the bhajans, if you really, go into the lines, you can actually feel the presence as you are singing, right? The bhava will actually attract the way you sing. Of course, you listen to some bhajans, it moves you to tears, right? That's what I mean. So Sabari's job was actually to welcome Rama and tell him what his journey forward is going to be. And the gift is Rama grants her, what the final thing. Just like his feet touched the stone and she became Ahalya, just like he gave Kabanda, he gave Kara, he gave Viradha, all these Rakshasas, in the form of Gandharva curse. The curse was lifted. Same thing with Sabari. She was only waiting to serve Rama before she gets a moksha, right? So she points him towards the kingdom of Kishkinda. She says, you have to go here and you have to meet the monkeys. Remember, because all of Ravana's boons, only two things he left out: human, naraha, and monkeys, vanaraha. So now Rama and Lakshmana are going to look for Sita. Sabari is saying, you go towards this area or land called Kishkinda, which is the kingdom of the monkeys, and you look for their leader, someone called Sugriva, and he will help you. And of course, we also know that it is where they also meet Hanuman, the great Rama Bhakta, Sri Anjaneya Swami, right? They also meet Hanuman, who represents wisdom, valor, viveka, vinayam, devotion, courage, and all the rest of it, seva, right? So this is where the Aranya Kanda ends, at the ashrama of Sabari, where the next stage of their journey begins, where they continue and reach the kingdom of Kishkinda. So next week, we will look at Kishkinda Kanda, where Rama and Lakshmana meet Hanuman, who takes them into the kingdom of the monkeys. So, Anyada Sharanam Nasti Tumeva Sharanam Maha Tasmat Karunya Bhavena Raksha Raksha Saishvaraha. Harihi Om Tat Sat.